Nothing in my life has ever come easy. I've had to work for everything I've ever had come my way. I mean, everything. And when you're uncomfortable, that's when you find out who you are. Nobody ever said I'd play Division I. I did that. Oh, he's too small. Oh, he can't get it done in the classroom. I was a 3-year starter, and my junior year I was like top 5 scorer on the team for a ranked program. Oh, nobody ever said, he graduated on time. I graduated on time, and then I went to graduate school.
Hell yeah.
That's a miracle. And they said, he'll never be a successful coach. I'm like, check out my resume, dog. Like, I don't care. Check it out. And I won a world championship. And then I got married. And then they said it wouldn't be a good father. I'm the best father. That's the best job you guys can ever have in the world is being a parent. I'm still trying to make my dad proud of this day. I hope you're seeing this day.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Ships Across the Border. My name's Max, I'm with Chris, and today we have on the head coach of the men's lacrosse team here at Elms, first-year program, and Chris will do the rest of the introduction about other places he's coached, because there's
a long list. So basically, before he got to Elms, he coached at UMBC, Mercyhurst, Harvard, Rutgers, U of Delaware, Siena College, and now Elms, and he also coaches a professional lacrosse team, the Water Dogs.
That's right.
Coach Cizz.
World champs, baby.
Did my research. So basically, here's how I want this to go down. I just talked to somebody who listens to the podcast, and they all seem to like when there's like a clear progression of how you got to where you are right now, so your life story and everything, and then along the way, I'm going to try first with the Legends, and then we're going to go into that stuff. So what is Legends?
Shout out Legends. This isn't for everybody, It was actually created by college lacrosse players from back in the day at University of Maryland, like the who's who, and when it came on our team store this year, I'm like, ooh.
That's awesome.
I can get behind that. That's nice.
That's awesome.
Okay, so basically the first thing I have here is, can you give me one story that encapsulates what your childhood was like?
Yeah. Sports. Like, plain and simple. Like, do as I say, not as I do. The only reason I went to school is so I could play soccer, basketball, lacrosse, and that's what kept me in the classroom, kept my grades up to where they needed to be, and, it's the only thing in my life that ever made sense to me. Like, I wasn't a rocket scientist, in no danger of splitting the atom anytime soon. I just balled out, and I just, every time I played, I had this, burning desire to, be the fastest, the toughest, the most competitive, and, I was never the biggest. But, I was one of those guys, whatever you went against me in, you were going to remember me, that kind of deal.
So what was it about? So you played lacrosse, soccer, basketball, any other sports?
Oh, just that, yeah.
Okay.
I played baseball up until 7th or 8th grade, and I got moved up to JV my second year ever playing lacrosse as an 8th grader, and I was kind of like, "You want me to play JV?" Okay, and it kind of took off from there. But I did play baseball for a good bit.
Was lacrosse your main sport growing up?
It was actually soccer.
Okay.
I had several Division III offers, a couple D2s for both lacrosse and soccer, and a handful of Division I soccer offers and a lot of D1 lacrosse offers.
And then you ended up playing?
I ended up playing lacrosse at the midnight hour down at the UMBC, where I was able to coach after I played there, which was phenomenal.
What was it about lacrosse that spoke to you opposed to the other two sports?
Just you can get after guys. You know what it's like in a basketball court where there's no place to hide and you kind of expose people's character and see who they really 100%. Are? You can make people really uncomfortable on the lacrosse field, and it's showtime. Every play, every situation, you have the ability to take a game over, to pull away, come from behind, just really have a presence out there, and the speed of it, just playing fast.
So before this year, I didn't really know much about, although lacrosse is a national sport of Canada.
It is. Not a lot of people know that.
So we
That's
know
a two-pointer right there.
We're Canadians, so
but I didn't even know that until I think Chris said that. But
there's a lot of Canadians that don't know that.
I feel something about the lure and what intrigues about lacrosse is you still have that. I don't really know what it is about hockey and soccer where it's exciting because there's not that many. It's not like basketball where every possession there could be back to back buckets in a possession, or tennis. So it's a unique sport where goals are extremely valuable, but it's a little bit more on the end of there's more goals, so the excitement is, I guess, more. So that's kind of the lure of it is every goal is valuable, but it's more fast paced than soccer or hockey where you can have more, their average game as well. I feel when you guys watch play, it's somewhere between 7 and 14 goals a game.
Yeah, like it's usually like a race to 10 and beyond. Yeah. And then like if you got like a heavyweight fight, if you will, you're looking like a 9-8 or like a 7-6, like a single digit affair. But traditionally lacrosse is incredibly fast paced. And now with the shot clock, like in basketball, it's kind of got that back and forth
There's
action.
a possession shot clock.
Yeah, and there's a shot
right?
clock reset if a shot hits the goalie or it hits a pipe.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't watched the lacrosse game ever until I got here at Elms, and something I noticed about it, because I played hockey growing up until I was 11 or 12, and there was a very similar style in terms of like short shifts and everyone's go, 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 and like I'm a fairly high intensity guy, but like even sitting there and I was just doing the penalties things, like there was almost too much intensity for me. Like people were just, how much time is left? What's going on? What's going on? Like it was just screaming.
Right.
I've never done this before, and I was just fucking nightmare almost. But yeah, it is somewhat similar to hockey, I think, in terms of the physicality and the speed of the game and everything. And I noticed that when I got here.
Yeah, it is. And like basketball, you have your 2-man and 3-man combination sets. You know, you have your half-court sets. You have your transition like schemes. But it's all about good decision making. And like the best part about lacrosse is like it's like a tornado. It's fascinating. And then like it can either end in your favor or a total disaster. So it's a beautiful game. It's crazy.
How did you start playing lacrosse? We kind of talked about with Lucci, with Connor, who we've had on the show already, and even just like with other people, just at the lunch table, whatever. Lacrosse really isn't a sport that you just like, because you can't go outside and kick a ball like soccer, just shoot on the hoop. It's like it needs more equipment, be a little bit more structure. Right. I feel like a lot of people who play lacrosse, somebody introduced them. So how did you play? I guess start your love for lacrosse.
It's pretty funny. I was in 7th grade, and I have 2 younger sisters, and my dad was going to the middle child, Sarah, her parent-teacher conference, and the science teacher was the modified lacrosse coach. So I was in 7th grade. I would have played modified, and basically the meeting was very quick. And Coach Conley goes, "Your daughter Sarah, she's doing great. She's in good shape. Why isn't Robert playing lacrosse? Why hasn't he played lacrosse?" And like that night, my dad came home with a lacrosse stick. And like, you know, where I'm from, there's goals in everybody's backyard. And you can tell how good a person is by the worn out grass in front of that goal. You know, and it just clicked with me. It made sense. You know, I was a good basketball player. I was the 6th man, but like I was out there for my defense and transition. I could jack threes. Shot close to 40% from 3-point range.
That's very good.
I won't tell you how many shots I took. 40%, yeah. And it just clicked. And it got to a point where, like, at night, my dad would go out and turn on the lights on his truck, and I'd be out there shooting for hours. Kind of like you were just talking about with your shooting workouts. Like, it consumed me. It took me over before I even, realized it happened.
There's been a lot of times where, like, I want to shoot late at night, and the lights in front of my house aren't enough, so like my dad will turn his brights on at the end of the driveway and just get enough shots.
Now, question. Where I'm from, I grew up with I'm from upstate New York, an hour north of Syracuse. Where? The 315, the North Country. And
not really the North Country.
We were called Hicks with Sticks, right? And we had gravel driveways. And when we played Syracuse teams, like they had glass backboards and like paved driveways, and like they played fancy, and like we were just blue collar, diamond press the whole game. Beat them 60-40, that kind of thing, like as a bunch of like maniacs out there. But yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with gravel driveways too. He grew up in Toronto, Ontario, so you had a very nice.
Oh, you are a Toronto kid. Okay.
I'm a Toronto kid. Chris is about 2.5 hours northwest, I think.
More west than north, but yeah.
Whereabouts?
I would be so baffled if you knew where I was from.
I might.
West Grey, Ontario.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, London, Ontario's over there.
Close, yeah.
Close.
So I grew up 30 minutes from Kingston, Ontario.
Yeah, so
in Watertown, New York. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And what are they called? The something islands.
Thousand Islands.
Thousand Islands.
Yeah, the bridge.
Yeah.
That's where that baby goes like this
when
you go over it.
When I drove here for my visit this last past summer, me and my dad drove the King. So usually I would drive the Buffalo.
Yep.
It was shorter on the Kingston route.
Right.
So I drove through Kingston, down through the Staten Islands, and
What's that highway? It's like 104 or like
401?
401, yeah.
yeah, that goes
I
right.
spent a little bit of time on that.
That goes right out to
back in the day.
That goes right out to London. My brother actually goes to school at Western University, and a lot of my friends are in London, Ontario.
Yeah, and I have family up in Plattsburgh. Like I've been to Montreal a ton.
Yeah.
And our assistant coach is from Vancouver.
That's a long
Jackson
ways away.
Henderson, yeah.
That's a long ways away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of want to loop it back to, so how did your career sort of evolve throughout high school in lacrosse?
Yeah, so I'll just go sport by sport. I was a freshman starter on varsity soccer as a ninth grader, and I played basketball. I made varsity my junior year, and then I spent about half the season on JV for lacrosse my freshman year, and then got bumped up, and my sophomore, junior, senior year was a starter, and I played with some of the best people that have ever played the game. My starting core guys, like we had guys going to Syracuse, Virginia. I went to UMBC. We had Towson guys, UMass guys. We had some D2 studs, some D3 studs. We were just loaded. And there's nothing to do up there. Like, we were called the Hicks with Sticks. And, like, we'd just go down and, like, pump all these city teams. It was a lot of fun.
So after you left high school, did you have any other offers than UMBC?
Yeah, so I had to make a decision. Mercyhurst was in the picture, a D2 national powerhouse that's going Division I next year.
Mercyhurst is going for lacrosse or for all their sports?
As a school, yeah. So they're D1 in men's and women's hockey, and now the whole school's going.
So I was talking to Morgan, and she was explaining to me how you can, like, a Division III school can be Division I in one sport.
Look at Hopkins on the men's lacrosse side. They're a Division III school, but they're a perennial powerhouse since I can remember.
So our previous
Division I.
school, Medaille, was a Division III school.
Medaille? I didn't know that.
Chris,
I gotta know my scout boys. Sorry.
Yeah. So we went to Medaille University in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And then that school shut down.
That's right.
And so then
I tried to get a Lafayette cat from there, but he didn't want to come out here.
What was his name?
I don't remember. I saw him in the portal. I'm like, oh, an upstate kid.
Yeah.
From the Revs. I got to get him.
So when Medaille shut down, Coach Southall reached out to me through the transfer portal. I came here, reached out to Ian. Ian came here, and then Chris kind of just followed suit.
That's awesome.
And because just going to continue the podcast, he was not attached to any school and wanted a new experience. So that's kind of how we're here. Kind of lost my train of thought of where I was going with
No, this is my style. Like, this is like lacrosse.
I kind
Up
of
and
lost
down,
my
up
train
and
of
down.
thought of where I was going with that, but I'll pick it back up.
So you had Mercyhurst, UMBC, any other offers? That was the only two?
Oh, no. So I was looking at Cortland, too. I was looking at Lemoyne. I had a great official visit to Penn State and UMass. Luckily, those coaching staffs don't hold that against me to this day. And I was offered a walk-on spot at Syracuse, but, like, not a lot of people know that Syracuse is a private school.
Very
and
expensive.
I grew up on a farm, and my family, we didn't have a lot, but we had what we needed,
So
And there was more money for me in the lacrosse side of things than in soccer. I actually had a JUCO and Division III recruiting experience for basketball, if you could believe that, at 5'8".
What Division III school?
Potsdam.
Yeah, in SUNY Potsdam?
Yeah, and a local community college, Jefferson Community College, the Cannoneers. Yeah.
But it seems like you had so Cortland is a Division III school.
Yeah.
And Penn State is a Division I school.
Yeah, right.
Very, very different
athletic
programs. So what kind of kept these Mercyhurst, which was D2 at the time, I guess it's now going D1 like you said, and kept Cortland, who's Division III, in the running race with UMBC, UMass, Penn State, because you would never really see that, I feel like, in other sports.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about lacrosse. Like, I mean, one of the best players I ever coached was a goalie, and he was 5'6", and he lost 11 games his entire college career and played pros. Like, at 5'6". So you don't need to be like an NFL running back or like a Gronk. Like, if you're fast and basically can help a coaching staff win a game on their schedule, like, you're getting recruited, And lacrosse is for everybody. That's my other favorite thing about it. Canadians have a certain style. Upstate guys have a certain style. Long Island guys, Baltimore guys. Baltimore guys are known as like the slicksters, the cool customers, the gunslingers. Like, they're fancy and slick and smooth. Everything looks pretty. They're polished. And then, like, you get the upstate blue collar, Long Island blue collar, but, like, lacrosse is taking off. It's in California. It's in Utah, Denver, Texas, Missouri, Florida, Georgia. Like, it's really taken off. And, like, Philly's a hotbed. New Jersey's a hotbed. I mean, it's awesome. Connecticut, another good one. So, like, the Northeast is kind of like the lacrosse headquarters, if you will.
Sure.
So what was it about UMBC that made you want to go there instead of the other schools?
So UMBC, every spring break when I was in high school, we would go down to Maryland and play teams from Maryland, like those state champs, and like we usually did pretty well because of the previous guys that I mentioned who went to those schools. And my sophomore year, we played at UMBC, and I'm like, this place is kind of sick. And me growing up on a farm, you come off the exit in 95, the first thing you see is a silo. I'm like, okay, what's this? And it used to be a dairy farm before it became a college. It's a big 3-mile circle. And it's, now they're, when I played, we were a top 15 program. When I coached there, top 10 program. And I just loved Baltimore. I love the weather, and the people are great. And, I learned what Old Bay was, and crabs, and like crab cakes.
Speaking of Old Bay.
Yeah.
So me and Chris went.
It's not poutine, bud.
We actually just went grocery shopping, and I just got a whole thing of like Old Bay seasoning.
Let's go.
To like put in like my ramens or something like that to give it a little extra flavor.
Try them on scrambled eggs.
Really?
Game changer. Yeah.
Put me on. I'm gonna definitely try that. Me and Chris actually what did we do the seafood boil thing for?
Madai? What do you mean,
Madai?
We just bought the seafood thing and brought it back.
we spent like $150 on this massive seafood boil, but I don't know, it was for something.
I think it was like maybe like 100 subscribers.
So critical question. Wawa. Talk to me.
He probably doesn't know what that is.
I know where Wawa is, but like I've never been.
I've been to Wawa.
Okay.
Got food poisoning from a chicken sandwich. But it is fire. Probably the best gas station.
I mean, Wawa is that's another, anyways, that's a game changer, yeah.
It's like a gas station, but you can get like hot food. And it's like, has everything.
Oh, when I coached at Siena, like our coach, John Svek at the time, we would like plan our routes out, like if we're going to like Canisius or wherever, like if there was a Wawa on the way, we were stopping there.
Is there a lot of Wawas in Buffalo?
So it originated in upstate New York, a family from Canandaigua, and then like just took off.
Really?
Like my last couple years at Maryland, or at UMBC, I mean, when I was in Maryland, like a Wawa came to like Hunt Valley, and I was like, wait, what? Like, I love Chipotle, fellas, but like, I'm going to Wawa.
I got it for the first time in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty big in Florida. And I got a burrito, like a Chipotle burrito. One time I went. The next time I got a chicken sandwich.
And regretted it horribly.
Yeah, regretted it horribly. But it was fire. Going down, it was fire.
So you're the one. You can take out like a home mortgage or a car loan at a Wawa. It's like amazing.
What?
No, I'm joking, but like they got everything. Yeah. They got everything. So, anyways.
I kind of want to get into how you progressed through college and how you ended up being a coach.
Yeah, so I knew I always wanted to do something around athletics, and the three things I had in mind was, one, I was potentially going to go do something in the FBI. One of my uncles, he's a big deal. He worked for like the last 4 presidents, and like he was going to get me like an interview. The rest was up to me. I'm like, well, I appreciate you. The other was a guidance counselor, and I always kind of wanted to coach, and I kind of got into it by accident. So I had an extra year of eligibility when I was leaving UMBC, and I was going to play at Mercyhurst. And long story short, they were going to offer me a salary and not a scholarship. And on my visit, the day I visited, the assistant coach said, I can't do this. I'm getting out of coaching. And Coach Ryan, who's now the head coach at Mount St. Mary's, we won a championship together with the Water Dogs. He goes, I got good news and bad news. I'm like, give me the bad news. He's like, the bad news is I've lied to you. You're not getting a scholarship. I'm like, all right, well, what's the good news? He's like, I need an assistant coach. I'm like, done. In my first year of coaching, we made a Final Four.
At Mercyhurst.
Yeah, and we were like, a couple goals away from going to a national championship. I'm like, hey, coaching, yeah. And then from there, UMBC, I mean, we were ranked as high as 2 and 3 in the country those years. Like, we had some special guys. And that got me a lot of attention from other schools. So I had offers from Brown, Harvard, a few other places. And after 3 seasons there, I ended up at Harvard. And the coaching staff there, they're now the head coach of Maryland and Georgetown. And those guys are some of the biggest names in lacrosse. And, from there, I went to Rutgers. I actually turned down the Ohio Wesleyan head job at 27 years old. And I was like, nah, I'm going to Rutgers.
Is that young to be a head coach at 27?
That's very young. So actually the Water Dogs head coach, who I coached with, Andy Copeland, was one of the first youngest head coaches ever hired at Fairfield. He's the winningest coach in program history there on the men's lacrosse side. He was either 29 or 30 as a first-year head coach, but like he's beyond his years. You know, he's a mentor to me, one of my best friends, and did one heck of a job there. And he's always looked out for me.
What is the difference between Division I lacrosse and Division II lacrosse and Division III lacrosse? I feel like you've thrown out a lot of names about a lot of different schools across varying levels, and so I'm just kind of curious because in basketball, like the strongest, most athletic, biggest, tallest players play Division I. The skill level isn't as much as you would think.
Right.
It's more of the physicality and the, I guess, natural ability. And then
Yeah.
on the school side, the difference is the financials and the facilities and the scholarships.
Right.
So talk to a little bit about lacrosse and the varying.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like Division III and Division II, the high-end top-tier teams, like, for example, like Salisbury, Tufts, RIT, Division III, they could, like, compete and beat Division I teams because of what they have on campus. Division III, Division II, you get guys with, like, great skills. Maybe not, like, the biggest players, but, like, I think the speed and athleticism at the Division I level is, like, it's nuts. That's why the fall is so important. Your freshman year, and if you're a new student coming to Division I, the speed of the game is insane. And I tell our guys this, like, when the game slows down for you, that's when you kind of, like, start clicking and your confidence and your playmaking abilities and decision-making abilities. And, like, you know, you get in sticky situations, you get that experience, right? And, you know, I remember I was one of the best players coming out of upstate New York. And when I got to UMBC, there was several other guys like me there. So I had, you know, all this competition. I'm like, well, I'm not used to that. Like, this is crazy. But, yeah, I just think, you know, for example, if you're 6'4" and a velociraptor in high school, you're going to be that in college. Mm-hmm. And then the idea is your skills will come along with the physical piece, like you were saying. And for my money, I think basketball is the biggest jump from high school to college in terms of, like, challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to loop back to what you said about that first year of coaching. How did that feel to come in as a super young coach and be around this high level of talent and you're just thrown into the fire, sink or swim? Like, how was that for you?
It was kind of crazy, but I loved it. And I had a similar situation at UMBC I'll touch on in a second. There was like 4 or 5 guys from Canada at Mercyhurst. They were all older than me. I was like 22, whatever I was. And the thing I could hang my hat on was Coach Ryan recruited me. And I played Division I. None of those guys did. So they were all kind of like, and I was supposed to play with them. And I had my UMBC playbook with me. And I literally, that was like my Bible. And that and a ton of film. But like, I just, from then until this day, I'm just real with guys. I'm real with them. Like, even if it's a tough conversation, I'm like, you're not getting it done, bud. You know, either you're not coachable or I'm not coaching you the right way. So we got to find out what's working, what's not working. And then just, you know, I never wanted to be like a drill sergeant. I wanted to be like the cool uncle that you want to hang out with. For sure. Kind of like Bruce Arians, you know, when he was with Tampa, he's like, I want to be the cool uncle. Shout out Johnny K, my father-in-law. He's Bruce Arians' twin brother. But, yeah, that was kind of when I knew. My biggest challenge was things always came easily to me as a player. And when I was coaching, if a guy couldn't, like, do a certain thing or, you know, make a certain look, play, shot, whatever, I'm like, why can't you do that? Mm-hmm. And, like, it doesn't come like that to everybody.
Yeah, we had a conversation with Coach Seti back at Medaille before it closed down, and he had the same kind of problem where he'd be talking to a kid, because he was a great shot blocker, good defender. He was 6'8", athletic, and he was coaching a kid who was 7 foot, but he wasn't that athletic, and he couldn't get to the same spots as him. So
Upstate New York kid, actually.
If he was, he'd be at St. Bonnie's, right?
Yeah, and it's like he just couldn't figure out why it wouldn't click for him. So that was like his big coaching challenge. He had to figure out how to get it through to the kids who weren't as athletic and weren't his build.
Yeah. And one of the things in my coaching career was doing drills that replicated game-like shots, situations, scenarios, and like just, you know, pound the ground, rinse, repeat to the point where it's a muscle memory thing. And like you've done it 1,000 times. You've done it during practice when it's hectic. That way on game day, you're kind of like, you see it, you do it. Does that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so our last episode was with our assistant coach, Coach B. And he was talking about
He's a great dude. I like him.
He's hilarious.
He's a wordsmith. I like him.
He was talking about how he was also in a similar position of he accepted a young basketball coaching job at coaching freshmen, but he was 19. So he's only a couple years older.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had a conversation. Like, there's kind of 2 ways that things can go when you're a young coach coaching people who are around your age, maybe even older. Is one, they could you guys could be buddies and they respect you and they respect your honesty and they
Right.
look at you as human because you're close to them. Or they could be like, this guy, he's younger than me. Fuck this guy. Like, what does he know? So
No, you get that,
and
yeah.
It sounds like you had the positive, I guess,
Yeah.
stick of the Y in that sense of where they looked at you as like a brother and he's experienced and he can teach us and
Right.
he's being real with us.
Right. Yeah. And I just I always try to water it down for guys. Like, it's a simple game. It can be very complex, but if you have a good foundation in your house, you're going to have a sturdy house. For sure. I know that's cheesy, but I think one of the things, and I had a similar situation my first year at UMBC, the juniors and seniors were all guys I played with. But those guys knew how hard I worked and how much it meant to me and how special it was for me to be back in my alma mater. And since now, that program has never seen the success it had while I was on staff there. I'm not saying it was me. I'm just saying that's what it was about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And they trusted me. And that's I say that to our guys too. We trust you, trust us. If it's a game situation, what are you seeing out there? Here's what we're seeing. You try to mesh it all together and get the best outcome.
I kind of want to break down how you got to Elms after all these coaching jobs. So what happened after the UMBC and how did you end up getting here?
Yeah, so I got caught in a couple coaching carousels, which, it's a what have you done for me lately profession now at the Division I level. And, I remember a couple jobs where you get kids jobs, you get them internships, you take chances on kids who weren't meant for college and they turn out great. And, if you have a bad season, everybody's like, oh, well, it's okay, how quickly we forget, And so I got out of coaching in 2018. I coached D1 for 12 years. And it's because I got married and started a family. Now, being a married college coach at any level is incredibly difficult. And I was at a boarding school for 4 years, and then I wanted to get back in the game so bad. And when I was coaching pros, I was being contacted by several startup programs. I had a crack at being a UMass assistant again, right in the backyard, and a couple other places. And I was just like, well, I'm going to keep coaching with the Water Dogs because this is kind of like a golden nugget, right? And so I'm looking for these jobs. I'm getting antsy. I want to get back in. And I see Elms College. I was kind of like, Elms, never even heard of the place. And I literally drove down here that afternoon, saw the turf, and I was like, I'm applying. And then I found out I had an unbelievable connection with a person on the hiring committee. Coach T, the old AD, the former AD before Southall, he started lacrosse at Western New England. And the head coach there also coached in the league that I coached, and I knew him from my Delaware days. And I called him. He goes, you want this job? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you're kind of overqualified. I'm like, no, I'm not. Don't do that to me. And he goes, are you going to stay there? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, why? I'm like, well, I've always wanted to be a head coach ever since I can remember. That's why I started this. I've won a world championship. I've coached in the World Lacrosse Championships. I played Division I, cup of coffee in the pros before the C word got me. And as a player, and I was just I got one thing left to do. I want to be a head coach. And Coach T calls me up. He's like, hey, Bubba, you serious? I looked at your resume. I'm like, yeah. I go, my wife is way too hot for me and makes way more money than me. This is perfect. Shout out Mrs. Cizz. And when I came down and met all the great people here, there's great people here. And that was kind of the deciding factor. In my interview, I'm walking around and I can't say the other startup colleges where I interviewed and decided not to take it. They didn't have what this place had. Didn't have the charm. Does this place have all the bells and whistles and fancy stuff? It doesn't, but the people make it go. And that's what I am. I'm a people coach,
for sure.
Right? They always say in coaching, coach with your head, not your heart. I've done that. I like coaching with my heart.
For sure.
I have players, every player I've ever coached over the years, I am still in touch with 90% of them. I just love that. That's my favorite part.
So being this is
I'm getting off topic.
No, it's fine.
No. We actually talked about this exact thing, which you can talk about in a minute on a couple of our most recent podcasts. Of Elms is a place where family is a lot more at a higher, I guess, importance than a lot.
Absolutely.
Before we do that, I do want to go into, so since this is your program now, this is literally your little baby that you're creating.
Yeah.
What things are you trying to emulate from, because you've been to 9 different teams now, what are you trying to bring into this program, like some of the characteristics or pieces from the other teams that you played for that you're trying to create here?
Right. So I've had the absolute privilege of playing for and coaching with some of the best in the game. And I wanted to use my playing and coaching experiences and kind of bring that here. And one thing, and my team repeats this too, is my life statement is it's cool to care. And that applies to all areas of life. Doesn't matter what. I don't feel like going to class and say, well, it's kind of cool to care. You have to go to class if you want to play, right? And my 3 cornerstones of recruiting and building this from inception, literally, was good people, hard workers, and guys that are coachable. That's it. I don't talk about grades. I expect you to do well. If I can graduate from college, anybody can. And I had to work. I had to work hard to graduate. But I gave this in a pregame speech once. I spent 544 days recruiting this program. And when every last member was here, that's when I got to coach them for the first time, late January. And I've just been like so eager to get this thing going. It's truly been special. And like, I treat everything like the Super Bowl. I want to win the coin toss pregame. Like that's how I roll. And I just want guys to have a great experience, enjoy the guys they're around. And like, I found out if you're able to do all that and piece it together, the schematic stuff, the wins, like they kind of fall in line there. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Yeah, I heard a Simon Sinek talk about, like, because in the business world, it's kind of the same thing where it's like all numbers, no people.
Right.
And he said, if you care about the people enough, the numbers will come. That seems to be a reoccurring theme in a lot of areas of life.
I just watched The Field of Dreams. Like, if you build it, they will come. Like, same idea. Yeah. And if it all comes back to it's cool to care. And, like, these guys, I can say the one thing I'm most proud of about this group is that they bought in and they did everything we asked them as coaches to the best of their abilities. It wasn't always perfect, but their effort was. And that I can get down with that any day of the week.
How did your first ever season as a head coach and the first Elms lacrosse team in history? So the season ended yesterday.
It did,
the first day of the off season.
Yeah.
How was the experience? How was the season?
I'm still very proud to be here. Everywhere I've been, every opportunity I've had, it's come from like people I've known and had connections with. And then I'm cheesy. I get all that, but like I told the guys from day one, they will always get my best effort because they deserve nothing less than that. So, and I tell them, I treat this like I treat the water dogs. I treat this like I treat, my playing days at UMBC where it was like the most important thing in the world. And, just the balance of your classes, that being a good person, like it's all gotta mesh. And easier said than done sometimes, right?
Especially in the first season.
Yeah, and the culture was phenomenal. Like that was a big focal point coming in. Like you want to have good culture, right? Like you guys know.
For sure.
And to the guys' credit, they took it and ran with it. Like we had to like poke and prod along the way, but like, they're everywhere together.
So one of the things I was going to say is I feel like you did a great job of recruiting good people.
Thanks, bro.
Anybody who I talk to on the lacrosse team, great people. Lucci's a great guy. Tom's a great guy. And hopefully we have opportunity to recruit more guys, but they are always together. Yeah. It seems like everybody's always positive. No one has any negative thing to say, I feel like, from what I've heard.
Right. And it's like, I use the other example. I'm like, this year's house money. Like, nothing to lose, which makes you a dangerous group.
100%.
And like even the games we didn't win, like people were like, first year team, get out of here. I'm like, oh yeah. So we have
mostly freshmen.
Right. That's what I was just gonna say. We got 4 juniors, 2 sophomores, and the rest are freshmen, young bucks. Mm-hmm.
So where do you see the future of this program with the guys you have now and where you want to take the program?
Yeah. And I sent this in a parent email today, like an appreciation email, where like, now the foundation's been set. We have a very strong foundation, an unbelievable core group of guys, and we got some dudes in there. We got some guys that shouldn't be playing Division III athletics, like some D1 guys out there. And, sometimes like your connections and experiences, like you can land a couple of those. It's to go like this. It's to go like this. And like if we keep adding more great pieces, we need to have more midfield depth. We need a couple more alphas offensively. I mean, our defensive unit, like at one point this year, was the #1 defense in the country. That's insane. And to boot a first-year program. Unheard of. But that's the guys. I didn't even, like, acknowledge it. The guy's like, we got to put, I'm like, nah. Like, don't take the cheese. Like, this is what we do. Like, expect this.
I was literally just about to ask you, the defensive thing, was that something that you push in terms of play style, or is that just something that happened?
Yeah. I mean, again, when you have a guy like Ray Randall, you have a 20-year-old freshman like Soup, who's got junior hockey experience, and a guy, a netminder like Casey, who's 6'5", like a redwood.
They're roommates, right?
No, so time out. So Casey and Ethan. Okay. You have the biggest kid and the smallest kid as roommates. They're like the movie Twins, Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm dating myself, but like, if you don't know that, Google it. It's like one giant, and they go everywhere together.
They came in at the semester, right?
Yeah.
I have a funny story. So the smaller one, his name is Ethan. Right?
Yeah.
So I saw him one time filling up his Brita in the washroom sink, and I just explained because it was like probably one of his first few days. I'm like, bro, I was brushing my teeth, and I'm like, let him know there's a water like disposal thing like 15 steps over. Do you think he knows what? I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm like, buddy, like, there's a water thing like 15 steps away. He's like, no way. I'm like, yeah. He's like, thank you, bro. Yeah. And every time since then, we've been cool.
So great story about him. On Accepted Students Day, he's like, Coach, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm like, I got like 10 other recruits here. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, he's with his parents. He goes, I just wanted to let you know something. I'm like, what's that? He pulls out a Elms college lid, places it on the table, football style. And I'm like, let's go. He was the first one. And he's from the backyard here. And the thing I like about Ethan is he'll tear your arm off and he'll put it back on and he'll do it with a smile before you even know what happened. He's a little pit bull, and that's why I wanted him here. And we need some sandpaper.
He came in at this semester, right?
He was here in the fall.
Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Then.
So there's 4 new guys that are mid-year transfers. Devin Murphy's got hair down to his back.
Yeah.
Seen him.
Beauty. Cam Gillis, he's 6'6". Can't miss him.
Seen him.
Pope Francis Cat.
Yeah.
And Tosh from Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
And Maddie Salerno, a 24-year-old gem of a human being. 2 JUCO All-Americans. Like,
awesome.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And so we got up to 23.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to touch on is, since you've now been around countless coaches at all different kinds of levels, I want you to speak on the styles of coaching you've seen, what your coaching style is, and what you didn't like about some, maybe not naming or anything, but just the styles that you didn't like and why you didn't choose to adopt those.
So, in high school and college, I had the best high school coach, Coach V, shout out, upstate New York Lacrosse Hall of Fame, absolute legend. And my college coach, who's a Lacrosse Hall of Famer, inducted my sophomore year of college. The structure and discipline from those programs and the flair within the structure, like, you could play with flair, but you had to, like, be a guy and you had to have that ability. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned. Like, I tell guys, if they're going to shoot behind the back, kind of like in basketball, if you're going to do that, or you're going to do like a behind the leg step back into a crossover, Euro step, that better be a part of your game. And you better drill that until you can't drill it anymore. So it's a part of your game. And one of the biggest things I tell my guys, don't be somebody you're not out there. Like, be yourself. Same thing when you become a captain. You don't have to do that extra. Like, you are voted captain because of who you are and what you do. Continue doing that. Why would you change it, right? Sure. So I give my guys a lot of freedom. But I also like, when it's time to have all hands on deck and we got to dot the I's, cross the T's, they know that, okay, we got to flip the switch. Mm-hmm. I'm a big flip the switch guy. I can have fun with you here, but if you and me were out on the basketball court shooting, I'm trying to bury you. It's just how I roll.
I was seconds away from saying our coach last year was the exact same way. He could joke around with you. If some guy got with a chick last night, he would make fun of him, all this stuff. And then the second that buzzer went off for us to start practice, we're not laughing anymore. This is serious. We have 2 hours. If I hear you laugh, very fucking dialed.
Be where your feet are.
Yeah, that was exactly
That's a big rule for me.
Exactly.
And another big rule for me, and something I don't know where I got it. I got it somewhere along the way, is like, my college coach always told me, like, it's hard to play with weight, like if you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. So like, I came up or heard it somewhere, like, drop your bricks. Before your feet touch that lacrosse field, drop those freaking bricks. They're heavy. That way you get lost in practice. You treat practice like a game. And when I was a player, Practice was my favorite. I used to ball out in practice. Like, hey, we got a game tomorrow. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's showtime. When's it showtime? It's always showtime.
Ironically, we actually had a thing last year called Get the Bricks, where our coach would make us do suicides with bricks. And we would write.
Is that Brian Kane? Did he get it from him?
I have no
motivational dude, because I'm remembering now. That's where I got it from.
But he would, at the beginning of the year, we would take these bricks. He had actually a lot of cool stuff. We had a poker chip, which was our all-in chip, and you had to put that in a little bin at the beginning of every practice. And then there was
if you put the chip, you're all in.
Exactly.
And lost that chip, it was bad news. And
we were doing sprints for hours. But then we also had bricks at the beginning of the year. And what you did is you would write down why you're going out there to go 100% every single night. So like if your grandma passed away or something like that, you'd write that on the bricks. But every time you heard the words "get the bricks," you knew it wasn't going to be a good practice.
Right. And like I coached for a guy at Rutgers when we did the brick concept. Is like if guys were wasn't a good day. We had bricks at practice, and he would make them stop practicing and like carry bricks around the field. And I'm just like, oh man, it only took a couple times. But like, what was I gonna say? You had something where, oh yeah,
all-in chip.
Almost.
We can come back to it.
Yeah.
We can come back to it.
No, you said something. I'm like, I say the same thing.
I was gonna just ask about the locker room. I feel like that's a very big thing for you guys. I feel like a lot of the guys spend a lot of time in there, and it's a very big part of like the culture of the men's lacrosse team here at Elms. And I think Connor was the one that said like you come in here, but then you need to build a locker room. Yeah. And so talk a little bit about that. And why that was important to you.
So that was one of the things in the interview process. Like I said, the support and resources they were putting into it. That was like the crown jewel, like the locker room. And in my first year, I made a personal choice. Like, this is a big deal for Elms. Like, why don't we let like teams here when they have home games hop in there? That way they have a space. But like it's just a space. And like when I was in the locker room as a freshman in college, like that's where I learned how to tie a tie. Like it's that kind of like significance. It's like a second home almost. And we're incredibly thankful. It's a gorgeous locker room, and with the recruiting piece, like I was at D1 schools that didn't have a locker room like that. And when they asked me, when we were designing it, they're like, well, what do you need? I'm like, we need lockers. And at first they give me like a blueprint with like the mini, like, double, two levels of lockers. I'm like, no. I'm like, guys like live in there. And so we got them in. And then the other thing I asked for is like, I want a dry erase board. I'm like, we need that. And the guy goes, how about a dry erase wall? I'm like, how about that? And so the stinking wall is that. And they're like, okay, now the last piece is, there was two more pieces. One was like a stick cubby for like defensive sticks. So they're not all like, and I have a rule. The locker room better look neat every freaking day. Sweep the shed. That's a big thing for us.
Our coach is also big on that last year too.
Yeah. You got to. It's like getting out of bed in the morning making it.
Kind of touched on this a little bit with the bricks conversation and stuff like that, but what are your strategies for motivating players? And I'm assuming by the way you talk about it, it's the relationships you develop with them.
Yeah. So one of the biggest lessons I learned as a young coach, and remember I said how like things wouldn't come easy? It was not taking it personal, because like guys are trying, like if a guy doesn't catch a pass, like, well, obviously he wants to catch the pass. And when I learned that and it made sense to me, and the next piece was like playing with joy in your heart. We treat it like a business, right? But you got to freaking love it. Like you wouldn't be out there doing all those crazy drills you're doing.
And I only played in like 9 games this year.
Right, but you're
every day.
You're determined, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Shoot to get hot, shoot to stay hot. Exactly. Remember that one. I find a way to reach them. And another part of that is I found out, you can coach the whole team, but you can't coach the whole team the same way. You got to find different ways to reach players. Mm-hmm. And, we've had a couple guys that had a lot of success in high school, and they came here and they struggled out of the gates, and that's pretty common. And then we had guys that had been on the shelf for a year or two, hadn't played.
Like JC.
Tobin, yeah. Those guys are knocking the rust off. I remember in the fall, Tobin's like, I'm just not that good. I'm like, buddy, you haven't played in 2 years. I go, you're a best athlete. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. It's just that confidence and like that you believe in them, but also like push comes to shove, I'm going to tear you a new asshole if I need to. Understand that.
We interviewed Coach Sutter, who's the head coach at Westfield State for basketball.
Nice.
And we were talking to him about leadership.
You got to become a subscriber.
We were talking to him about leadership, and I asked him about when he's addressing someone in terms of like if they make a mistake, they throw a bad pass, something like that. He doesn't want to give praise to a single player or shit on a player in terms like individually. He wants to say like to the whole group, because if you praise one player, then all of a sudden everybody else turns on him and stuff like that. Do you have something like that where like you won't praise a singular player, or you won't demolish a singular player, or?
So even as a young assistant, like if I was getting on your case, like it was time to pick it up. And I preach about accountability with teammates. It's one thing if your coach is getting on you, but like if he's getting on you for dog, like that's different. Mm-hmm. It's coming from your boy. So like this guy I played with in college, Adam Shiley, would be like, Cizz, you better pick it up. I'd just be like, oh, I don't want him to hurt me. So yeah, I'm going to pick it up a little bit. This dude used to ruin guys. Anyways, and I'm a firm believer in catching guys doing something right. So if they are struggling, and it might not even be a play that, they think is a big deal, but it could be like a hockey assist. Yeah. Like something that sets, like a tough ground ball, and we move it twice and get one. I'm like, that's his goal, so the guys appreciate. Mm-hmm. And another thing I do is if a guy is struggling, I'll stop practice, right? Like the other day, we had Matty Salerno. He made a nice skip, but he kind of he threw a high school Harry pass. I'm like, you got to throw a big boy pass there. I made him throw 10 passes while the entire team stood and watched him throw laser beams, ear bullets, I call them. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to throw ear bullets. No high school Harry stuff here. Mm-hmm. Soft passes are, I can't say the rest, but they don't do much good. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of those are the tools I use to kind of try to get guys you can do it.
Speaking of high school.
Sorry, I'm getting fired up.
It's good.
It's good. We love the energy.
Content.
Do you think that anyone can become a college lacrosse player?
What does it take?
I think that's up to them.
Mm-hmm. But if someone's right now they're in high school lacrosse and they're wondering if this is for them, what do you think it takes for that person to become a college lacrosse player?
Controllables. Your attitude and your effort. Plain and simple. We have a kid, Eli Daly, never played before. That kid works relentlessly around the clock, and his growth was small. But by the end of the season, I was getting him reps. No, you're working your butt off. I'm putting you out there, man. Mm-hmm. And that kind of stuff is I'm a dad now. I'm so cheesy. I'm soft. I like to give the big bear, but the inside is edit that.
We'll fix it in post.
That kind of growth, that's what coaching's about. If you make somebody better, or if I've coached guys over the years that don't have the best lives outside of their sport, and just being a part of something like that changed them forever. That's what I draw towards.
So this is.
I don't know if that answered your question.
I think you're probably going to go in the exact same direction that I am. But so this is our 7th coach that we've interviewed through our Ship Across the Border, life. And I feel like a large majority of them have children and that have stories about how that has impacted their ability to coach, not in a negative way, but in the sense of a perspective change. Yeah. And I didn't know if you had kids or not, but that kind of segued me.
No, I know he had kids. One of the questions is to do with kids, and I was literally about to ask.
I was looking at the questions. I'm like, do you know he has kids? Yes, I don't know, but I don't want to, whatever. But now that we have confirmation that you're a father, how has that kind of changed your perspective?
So,
coaching.
One of the first things I say when people ask me, I'm like, my dreams came true. I'm surrounded by women, my daughters and wife, every day. Dreams came true. I'm the only guy in the house. I think when I became a father back in 2017, I became a better communicator. I slowed down. I watered it down. In the Division I world, if you're the who's who, and I've been inside that big boy network, you got to say all the right things. You got to be on. You got to be this. To the point where I'm screw that. I'm always going to be myself, for better or for worse. And I'm not bragging about myself, but Bill Tierney, the godfather of lacrosse, my college coach, and all my buddies that are still in the game, they're the sport needs more people like you. You don't bullshit. You're real. And I think that's a lost art because we get consumed, and I won't touch on the social media crap, but it's just be yourself. It's not hard.
100%.
Don't get caught up. And that's what I tell the guys. I'm KYP, know your personnel. 100%. Play to your strengths. Don't be somebody you're not.
Something that we've also talked about with coaches is how when they have a bad loss or a bad game, that can sometimes carry over to when they get back to the house and they have to sort of really have like this split. Like I'm coach here, but now I'm dad, and I'm really going to try and not let this carry over to like playing with my daughter or teaching. Has that ever happened to you where you had a terrible loss and you really had to sort of lock in? And
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say, I don't know if you ever find a solution for that. And if you do, like, we'll be on a different platform here talking about it to a bigger audience, but I'm sure the audience is huge. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Not an ad. I think it's just, again, it comes back to being where your feet are. Like when I get home, like the first thing I do is like I just unplug, I drop my bricks and like, tell my wife she's looking good, like all that stuff, and I just play with my kids and forget about it. And then eventually it comes back and I get mad again, and then I go back to playing with the kids. It's kind of like a hot potato or a hot cold thing. And like, I caught myself the other night, like my oldest daughter, Charlie May, she's playing soccer, basketball, baseball, lacrosse. She's doing everything. And she did something. I'm like, hey, low in, low out. Like something I was saying to somebody during the game. I'm like, oh.
Setting up offensive plays with Barbies.
Yeah. But my 4-year-old, this is a great story, complete sidebar. I call her my little head butter because she's a tank for a 4-year-old. There was one day at this daycare she used to go to. Long story short, this boy was teasing her a little bit. Mm-hmm. And she basically, what she did was she lured him in, and she looked at him like she's got these big blueberry eyes. Like my daughters are both gorgeous. I'm in a world of trouble for the rest of my life, and they're not allowed to date anybody. And she lured this kid in, and she just headbutted him, dropped him. And I'm coming back from a Seattle trip, in the pros. It is awesome, right? And the staff goes, so there was an incident today. I'm like, okay, like I'm jet lagged, I'm miserable after a loss. And they're like, so, this little boy was teasing Ivy, and she kind of like brought him in and like smashed him with her head. That's where she gets the nickname from.
That's fire.
And there was a long pause, and she's like, the staff person goes, so what do you want to do? I'm like, what do I want to do? I'm like, this is your facility.
I want to give her a high five.
And I just go, oh, I'm getting to that, yeah. And I just go, well, did you put her in timeout? Did you tell him to, Timmy or whoever the frig it was, to like not tease my kid? Mm-hmm. So, I don't have to tough talk him, an adult talking a tough talking a kid. And she goes, you're going to have to sign a form, an incident form. So she has a file when she was like 3. She's 5 now. And then on the way out, I'm like, low bones, Ivy. Good job. She dropped
maybe a future in the MMA.
Maybe. She's got a noggin on her, that's for sure. She's got the right attitude. Thanks for hearing me out. Yeah, I love that story.
So we touched on what does it take to become a high school player. Now that you're surrounded by the college guys and the people you have, what would it take for some of these guys to become professional players? Because now you've also coached that level as well. Yeah. So what is the separating factor there?
It's like anything in life, like school, like relationships, athletics, like what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And I was a late bloomer. Like, as you get older, like the things you weren't good at, you kind of like those become like your focus, like you're consumed, and you just pour into it. And like they're a strength now. And I'll share this story. A kid from my hometown played at Norwich. He was a face-off guy, self-made man. He worked his butt off and was like really successful. You got to have success and you got to show well, to the point where he became a 3 or 4 year professional lacrosse player right from this conference. And that's another example I use with our guys. I'm like, this is a possibility. And I also said that, who did I say this to? I said this to somebody last night after the game. The Division III guys that are in the PLL, they're some of the best for my money. They're the grittiest, they're the toughest, the smartest, because like you have a different life. When you're not D1 or what, like anywhere, it's like the have and have-nots, no matter where you freaking are at any level. Mm-hmm. But like those guys, it seems a little extra special because they didn't have the spotlight, they didn't have like all the media exposure, they didn't have everything. So like now that they're there, they don't ever want to lose it. For sure. And when you're playing like that, that's special stuff. You can't teach that. Mm. You get that. I mean, you can talk about it, I think, but like I don't know if that's a teachable thing. Maybe it is.
We had another conversation with one of his bosses, I guess you'd say, Stephanie Rudnick, where she talked about how there's this fire. There has to be an event where something happens to a kid where he gets cut from the team or something, and then that ignites it in him, and then he ends up just becoming this great player. But you can't have that without the terrible event.
Yeah, I mean,
It doesn't have to be terrible. It just has
but
to
it has to be-
no, that's what I was gonna say.
has to be
Like,
significant.
there's a lot of comparisons to be made there. I'll use myself. When I was in 8th grade, I had a varsity soccer tryout, and I was skilled enough, but I was just getting like tossed all over the place. And then, so I'm like, okay, here's my mission. As an 8th grader, I was the leading scorer on the soccer team in JV, the only middle schooler on the team, like filling it up. And all the other guys, like, that's another challenge I had to deal with. Like, oh, it's like, no, I'm like outworking you. You know what I'm saying? And like, I guess it's the, I talk about this too. I talk about a lot of stuff, fellas. I love proving people wrong. You know, and I'm sure you guys do too. I'd love to hear one of your experiences. I'm sorry to be hogging up all the airtime.
It's your podcast for a reason.
I'm a guest, and I appreciate this. That's why I reached out. I'm like, yo, you guys are reviewing coaches? Like, what's up? Nobody ever said I'd play Division I. I did that. Oh, he's too small. Oh, he can't get it done in the classroom. I was a 3-year starter, and my junior year, I was like top 5 scorer on the team for a ranked program. Oh, nobody ever said, he graduated on time. I graduated on time, and then I went to graduate school.
Hell yeah.
That's a miracle.
I was gonna say that's America.
Yeah, and they said, he'll never be a successful coach. I'm like, check out my resume, dog. Like, I don't care. Check it out. Nobody ever said I could hack it in the pros. Well, as a player, the C word I call it, like, that got the better of me. So then with the Water Dogs, my 4 years with that team, like, it was a growing period for me, but like, I feel like I'm the best coach I've ever been. And I won a world championship. And then I got married. And then they said I wouldn't be a good father. I'm the best father. That's the best job you guys can ever have in the world, is being a parent.
When you're ready.
Mark it down.
Not now.
Before you cross that bridge as your newly appointed spiritual advisor, talk to me. But like, it's just and you can ask the guys this. I talk about divine discontent. Like that, always, like, you got 100 on a test. Why didn't I get 105? It's the obsessed category and the commitment continuum.
For sure.
That's what it is. And those guys that have that, those experiences, it's fuel. It fires them up, and they become great.
So speaking of proving people wrong, I'm not gonna give a story, but I want to ask for a little bit of another story from you. Have you ever had an experience where? So obviously you play Division I, coach professional, coach Division I, but this one of my trainers from the summer, the same camp that I also work for, is a basketball camp, and so I was also training for a lot of the staff who play. And he says, like, you can't try and prove everybody wrong. A lot of people just don't understand, and you have to let the people who don't understand just not understand and not worry about them.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any, like, I guess, feedback, or like people say, like, oh, like, he used to be a Division I player, Division I coach professional, why is he coaching D3? And then how do you kind of respond to that? Because obviously some people, like, the people who don't know, and you're not going to waste time, like, lecturing people. It's just, you don't have to, what he says, I was beating around the bush, I didn't remember exactly what he said. He said, you can't please everybody, you can't, what do you call it? I just forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody's going to be happy, right?
Yeah.
But like, you can try hard to make it a good, so I talked about this yesterday to the parents after the game. Like, the coaches, myself, Coach Henny, Coach Crutch, Coach Rodney, who works in the cafeteria here, Beauty.
So I've seen him around.
Which
Yeah.
one?
He's the guy who's usually behind. He's doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He came up and asked to be a part of the team. Like, absolutely.
This year, like, he came to that. That is awesome.
Yeah. And like, he's a sweetheart. One of the nicest guys you could ever meet. Where was I going with this?
Proving people wrong.
So like, I worked darn hard to make sure it was a pretty freaking good environment out there, and that at the very least, it's a great situation that everybody wanted to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? Like, even you guys, and like, I get excited when you guys have a game or when you guys do well.
For sure.
But like, I also want those people to feel like they could be a part of it. Like, I'm cheesy like that. I can't help it. It's cool to care.
For sure. The quote was, you can't, why do I have it on my tongue and I keep
Prove
forgetting
people
what
wrong.
the quote was. Keep forgetting
It can't
what the quote was.
consume you.
Yeah.
Because then at times, like, I've had this in my career as a player, coach, at every sport, every level, is like, to the point where it becomes like an Achilles heel, where it can get the better of you. But I think when you find that balance, like when the game slows down for you, like I talked about earlier, then like you're firing on all cylinders. So like it has to be a part of the equation. It doesn't have to be the answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You brought up the concussion a few times. Did you have aspirations of playing more before that concussion happened?
I did. Yeah.
Wait, the C word is concussion?
Yeah.
I thought it was COVID. The whole time I thought.
That is a C word, but like,
The whole time I
no.
thought. By the way, the quote is you don't have to. What? I'm actually having
Just
like a mental
for
block.
fucking
I'm
forget
sorry.
about
Fuck
it.
the quote. Fuck
Getting
the-
flooded, brain fart. It happens.
Every time I get it, and then I just lose again.
So to make you feel
We'll fix it in
better,
post.
I have this thing where like I say things backwards. In my head, I'll say it the right way, but it'll come out opposite. And the guy's like, looking at him like, what'd I say? They're like, did you mean this? I'm like, yeah, what'd I say? I'm like, yeah, that's what I meant.
No, I don't know.
And it's funny.
I
It's like,
quote on the tip of my tongue, and then I
Leave
lose
it.
every time. Whatever.
I want to know.
about
So you had aspirations of probably playing pro lacrosse at that point. How does that feel to just have your hopes and dreams slashed by a concussion?
so I've had so many concussions over the days that like the past 4 to 6 years, like, and it happened to me before the LaSalle game, like I'll feel like I'll have a knife like right here. I'll have to wear sunglasses in the office. Like it's miserable. And I made 2 more runs at it for indoor, for Team USA, the box team in 06. And then I had another tryout in the fall of 2013 before I met my wife when I was like a specimen. And, you know, I had good tryouts, and I guess that, like I made the last cuts, or I made it through the first couple rounds of cuts. I didn't make it to the final rounds, but like I knew I belonged, and it kind of like satisfied that. But then being able to coach kind of like soothe that wound. And like here's a story. I'm a personal cat. One of my flaws is I treat everybody like I've known them my whole life when I first meet them.
I don't know if it's a
I
flaw.
don't know if that's a flaw.
Well, you know, you get some people like, oh, you're too friendly. It's like, shut up. Like you're on the mustard trying to catch up. I love saying that. So when that happened, like the first go around, my father found out 3 years ago, and he was like, why didn't you ever tell me about that? I'm like, I didn't want you to be disappointed in me, Dad. So as
He had a concussion.
no, he didn't know like I had a cup of coffee in the pros.
Oh, okay.
I never told him because I didn't want to let him down. I'm still trying to make my dad proud of this day. I hope you're seeing this, Dad.
Shout out Pops.
Yeah, Papa Cizz. And so last year during the recruiting year, out of nowhere, I make this semi-pro box lacrosse team at 40 or 41, whatever I was. And I played in 2 games. One game, I literally had 10 goals and 1 assist against a crappy team. Against the really good team, I had like 3-1 or 3-2 or something. And the last play of the game, and I only made the 2, I did a move, and I'm letting the shot go, and my right calf exploded. And I fell to the ground, and it went bar down and in. And I'm flopping around the ground. They thought I was celebrating. I'm like, I can't move. My right calf is done.
That's a good way to go out.
And that semi-pro team went on to win the championship. Those are the only games I played in.
That's a good way to go out.
So, you know, if you're going out as an old man, friggin' A.
So like I say, it kind of sounds like a blessing in disguise that it happened to you.
Yeah.
It just led you down the coaching path anyway.
And like, I know I got all these cliche sayings, but like, I always tell guys, it's okay to be uncomfortable in life, in athletics, like, because I believe through my experiences, like nothing in my life has ever come easy. I've had to work for everything I've ever had come my way. I mean, everything. And is when you're uncomfortable, that's when you find out who you are. And you might surprise yourself. You're like, oh shit, like, well, not so bad. Rocky, ain't so bad. You know that?
Ish. I've never.
Yeah, he's getting the shit kicked out of him.
I know the movie Rocky.
He's getting the shit kicked out of him for like 25 rounds, which I don't think is possible, but like, human nature. And then at the end, he's just like telling him to hit him. He's like, come on, he ain't so bad. He ain't so bad. And then he ends up like kicking the shit out of the guy and winning.
Yeah, we talk about how like it's so important to be uncomfortable because those are the moments of where growth happens. Like you don't get better doing.
Right.
Oh, we can just let that run.
Let that go.
I thought it would.
Oh, sorry, man.
No, it's just my battery.
Yeah, we got a lot of content here.
We definitely got we got a lot more to keep going. I think we can keep going for a little bit. What was I gonna say?
I was going to talk about like the uncomfortable thing where it's like it's very easy to say it, it's very hard to do it. Like I don't like preach because the uncomfortable launch has been beaten to death, but it's like it's so much harder to just do the things that you're saying. Like it's take your own advice kind of thing.
Right. So like, let me ask you, like, do you guys have like a defining moment in like your career so far that where like you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I did that?
Making college basketball. I grew up in a town of 300 people, so like.
Oh, you're smaller than me.
He played at Madai, and then this year.
Well, Madai, what, like 1,000 kids maybe?
Maybe less.
Yeah, right.
And then so he played at Madai. We were both freshmen there. And then he decided he was gonna go down a couple of different avenues away from basketball before Madai shut down. So then he came here just as a student.
Yeah, I grew up in a town of like 300 people. College basketball was not like it was beyond what I thought was possible.
Right.
And then, like even when I played hockey for the first 13 years of my life, and
That's
like,
awesome.
And
man.
basketball like wasn't even a thing. So I not only did I get into it late, I had crazy aspirations of going to play college basketball. And then everyone said I couldn't do it. And then like I hit the college basketball scene, did it, and then all of a sudden but that's where I found out it was like, well, I did this thing, and then you get that sort of weird aftertaste where you hit a goal and then you're like, well, shit, now what do I do?
Right.
And then but I was lucky enough to have the podcast, and I started lifting weights, and then I had all these other avenues.
You're looking good, man. You're looking good.
Thank you. And I had other avenues to traverse down, and that's kind of where we are now. But I want to go into, so your kids play sports right now.
Yeah.
Is that something that you like? You probably didn't push it on them because most parents don't, but it was in the back of your head. Are you like, I really do want my kids to play sports?
So I wanted sons so bad because, like, you know, I wanted to pass lacrosse on to my kids. And both of my daughters' baby photos, I'll show you here in a minute, they both have sticks in their hands. And I got, like, wooden sticks with, like, their initials, but in Louis Vuitton pattern and, like, their nicknames.
That's awesome.
But, like, I'm letting them play whatever they want to play. And, like, you know, my oldest is playing baseball right now, and, like, she has her first game Saturday. And she played her she's in first grade. And she scored her first basket in the last game of the year in basketball. But, like, this is a quick sidebar, right? For sure. I knew she was going to be good at basketball. They're doing this drill, where, like, she's got to dribble with one hand and flip little cones over and keep moving. She was like a buzzsaw, and I'm sitting there, I was just like, what the okay. I was blown away. I'm like, my kid's going to be athletic. Let's go. And just like anything, I'm cheesy, man. Like, if you're the best, like, piano guitarist, I'm going to think that's gnarly.
For sure.
Like when you succeed out in the court, and like I'm going to be fired up. And
For sure.
I'm cheesy that way. I can't help it. Like,
A lot
it's
of people
cool.
don't appreciate success as well.
Dude.
A lot of envy, a
Well,
lot of things. But I think success is anyone sees it.
This is the thing that I learned, and excuse my language.
This real quick, because I feel like
The first thing I learned as a coach was, like, it's easy to bitch. Like, if you're on the outside looking in, you know, everybody knows more than the coaches. It's easy to bitch.
I noticed that last year, even when we got here, because in the basketball sense of things, the team hasn't been very good for very many
Yeah,
years.
but you guys work hard, man.
It's true. And like, even as we got here, it's sort of this energy in the room where all the people who were like the fans, they had no idea what was going on in the team. They were like, well, Elms isn't very good. We're going to go 5-20 again, all of this stuff. And it's like, you have no idea what it takes to be a winning program. You're just saying that to say it.
misery loves company.
Yeah, for
Coach
sure.
says
Like,
all the time.
I'm going to go on a limb and say most of those people are jock sniffers, never called a timeout or have a
100%.
athletic experience. And, like, the people
Jock
who
sniffer,
watch,
that's a good
the people who really watch, like, get it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was worried this year. I'm just like, I go up to parents and be like, sorry, we couldn't get that one for you. They're like, Coach, you kidding me? Like, I'm just like, no, I care. Like, I care what you guys think, which you shouldn't. But I think it's important to a point where, like, you got tabs and, like, you know, your focus, like, it can change, but, like, it's still, your expectations are your expectations.
There's a level of perspective that I gained after playing any sport at the college level, specifically basketball, where, like, if I talk to somebody now who hasn't played college basketball, they just don't get it from the inside. And you can tell by the way that they talk about things. And even like reporters, like, I'm not going to Stephen A. Smith or somebody, the way they talk about the game.
LeBron James is a friend of mine.
You can't understand the intricacies of the game if you haven't been in the
Stephen
fire.
A. Smith played in the league, though.
Stephen A. Smith, there's no way in fuck. I'm pretty sure he played in high school.
but it's somebody else.
But like, have you ever seen him and JJ Redick on the same panel?
No, it's Kenny the Jet Smith played in the league.
So I just started finding JJ Redick stuff.
I love JJ Redick.
I hated back knee in college, like hated him, hated puke. My mom calls Duke puke, so like I was a Syracuse basketball fan, like that was religion in my house, but like I respected him and like I've gotten to see a different side of him on his like interviews, like the Ray Allen one. I'm like, holy shit, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, I think the
He
reason
was good in the league.
Yeah, the reason that happened, I think, is because people can tell when someone's being genuine and they're talking from experience, not from theory. And it's really
Skip
easy.
Bayless.
It's really easy to sort of parse that out. It's like you really don't understand this on the level that you should, and that you're on this big panel with guys who actually understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, those people are all in the mustard trying to catch up usually.
He has
like entertainment value, but like no stuff. A lot of sizzle, not a lot of steak.
JJ Redick has a podcast with LeBron now.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, they have.
All right, I got to know what you guys think about LeBron.
I love LeBron.
I respect LeBron.
He's the GOAT.
He's in my top 5.
Top 5?
Yeah.
He's the
Not in
GOAT.
your top 2.
One.
He's
One?
3 on mine.
LeBron's the best player.
Who's the other two?
Who do you think?
Kobe and MJ.
Kobe and MJ?
No, I'm sorry. He's 4. Kobe's 3.
LeBron's the best player.
I respect
No,
the
he's
Kobe.
not.
I respect the Kobe because that actually is
Who's
something
so
that I've.
Magic? Shaq?
Shaq's up there.
So
Magic is up
I
there.
assume Jordan's your number 1. And who's 2?
He's number 2.
Who's 1?
What is your top
Larry
5?
Bird?
Yeah.
Larry Bird's number 1.
You know why?
Why?
Because Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, everybody else respect him and say he's the greatest. And I get this argument with my cousins all the time. I'm like, Larry Bird dropped 45 on Atlanta left-handed because he was bored.
But-
I go, would Steph Curry, right, and I know what you're going to say, and Steph Curry, I'm just like, why doesn't anybody try this nowadays if they're so freaking good?
I think Kobe did it, didn't he?
Yeah, Kobe hit a left-hand turnaround fade.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, did
He's
he
a
get
dog, too.
45?
So, what would you think I was gonna say?
Mechanics and plumber era?
No.
I was going to say, those guys are tough.
I wasn't gonna say that. But
That's what my cousins always say. I'm like, yeah, mechanics and plumbers.
No.
Look at David Robinson. Look at Karl Malone. Look at Dennis Rodman. The bad boys of Detroit. You didn't go in the middle.
But
Plumbers and mechanics.
for a
My ass.
little perspective on that.
Shout out to the Cross Syndicate.
Who do you think has hit more career threes? Larry Bird or Draymond Green?
Oh, Draymond Green. Like the new fake Dennis Rodman, Draymond Green?
Yeah.
I like him. He ball taps people too much for my taste, but
Statistically, Draymond
he's
is
got
not-
more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, let's talk about meaningful threes.
That's super fair. But I just,
No, because like in all those wins, like it wasn't him taking the threes.
no, for sure.
It was Mr. Steph Curry. I got a great story about him. Jimmy Patsos, the old Siena head coach for men's basketball, when he was at Loyola, double teamed Steph Curry in an NCAA game and kept him to like under like 30 or whatever. But like they played two guys on him and played like a triangle or whatever, like against the rest of the team. It was like insane.
Yeah.
This might be the first argument that's ever been on the Shipped Across the Border podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an argument. I guess I'm
Well,
just
debate.
like, I guess I'm stating my opinion.
For sure.
Just frowned upon nowadays.
Larry
So-
Bird's a top 10.
Tay was
player
up.
ever.
Yeah, Tay was up in the office one day, and a couple other guys, and like we did the best, and then we did like you could pick a starting 5, and I asked for it to be 6. And you know who my 6th man was? Jay Will, White Chocolate,
Oh, I love watching him. He's smooth. So very smooth.
smooth criminal.
Yeah.
So because we're maybe, I don't know how much percent we have left on this. I'm going to go, I think we have like 4 more questions. And
I
then we're
hope
gonna
you
wrap.
guys got what you needed out of this. I'm
150%
This is awesome
overkill.
all right,
But I think.
Coach Peace first?
and I'm just being myself. Like this is
That's
me.
all we can ask
I got
for.
one other speed, reverse.
On this podcast, I have a tradition that I stole from another podcast, which is the last guest asks a question for the next guest without knowing who it's going to be. And Coach P left this question, which is, what do you want people to say about you behind your back / when you leave the room?
That I guess I would say that, like I always say, like if you can find somebody else that cares more about you as a person and an athlete and a student and just your life in general, who's not your coach, that should be your coach, I'd love to meet him.
Solid answer. You can ask them the last question.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Treat your schoolwork like you do your athletics. Like I told you, I only went to school so I could play sports, and that's just, I say that now, it just sounds so dumb. But like, that was my safe place. Sports was my safe place because like I was not a good student. Like I have learning disabilities, like up to my teeth, and like sports was the only thing that ever really clicked and made sense with me. And like I was better than all the smart kids were at school, and I was better than all like the so-called great players. And it's just because you can't teach heart. And like I'm gonna try not to cry. I saw my defensive coach from high school after the LaSalle game. I'm sitting at the turf. I'm staring at the ground, wondering what we could do different, keep it closer, play better. And I hear a voice go, Coach Cizz! And I look up, I was like, and he almost passed away last year, open heart surgery, the whole thing. And I was like, I ran over to him and hugged him. He goes, I am so proud of you. He goes, I never thought I'd see this day for you. He's like, you guys are going to win this conference someday. He's like, you were the best player I've ever coached. I'm not bragging about myself. Like, this guy, sure. Mean Gene, Coach Saint, I don't know, it gave me that hope that I always need and want. And, I believe in happy endings. Like, I want everybody to be happy, and I want everybody to, like, have a great experience. I'm cheesy that way, and I can't help it.
Awesome.
I don't think there's a better way we could end it.
I gave you my best here today, boys.
It showed.
Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you, guys.